So we'll start off with just a quick agenda of what we'll be covering today, just a quick intent and purpose, why I'm doing this for you all today. We'll start off with a couple of stories just to get things started of actual real human intelligence operations that have contributed to decision-making, supplementing information intelligence and data from appliances, firewalls, things like that. We'll go into how human intelligence supplements a mature security team. We'll end with one more quick story, and then we'll finish off with how HUMINT actually plays a valuable role in information security and data collection. And then we'll open the floor for questions. So just a quick background, I started my career in the United States Army Reserves as an all-source intelligence analyst. Woo! Awesome. I'm liking this crowd already. Thank you. Deployed to Afghanistan for 11 months, worked in a detention facility alongside interrogators as their human intelligence analysts. So basically they would get information from detainees. I would corroborate it or deny it with information that was being collected from the field. So pretty much telling the interrogators, hey, your detainee is a high value target or he's just full of shit, we need to move on. After I came back from that, I got a position with Air Force OSI. Went to Afghanistan to work for them for 4 years, and then after I was done with the Air Force, I went over to USSOCOM, still in Afghanistan for another 2 years, in a human intelligence analysis capacity. So a lot of time in Afghanistan, came back to the private sector in 2012, and here we are today. So human intelligence broken down real simply is just data and information that's collected from human sources, right? So today we're going to demonstrate the value and role of human intelligence, and I'll be showing you this through stories and live scenarios of how human intelligence has played an important position in information security, as well as how leaders can explore developing a human intelligence function within your information security team. Awesome. So for the first story, we'll get started. There's actually a practice in certain countries where individuals, usually based in the US, they contact someone in another country, basically their home country. India is pretty prevalent in this one. And they hire what we call a proxy interviewer. Basically, this candidate really doesn't have the job skill set for the position they're applying for. They'll go online. There's a network of people that actually do a pay-to-play type thing where the candidate will pay an individual money to sit in and do the interview for them. And this is actually this works very well for remote positions because many times your HR representative, your hiring manager really doesn't see the employee face-to-face when they're remote. So they take advantage of these vulnerabilities by calling somebody to sit in for them during the interview, and the person that's interviewing the candidate, who's really the proxy, has no idea that that's not the person that's actually applying for the job. So we had a group of researchers that came across a situation like this. They actually got contact information and they reached out to one of these proxies via WhatsApp, so you can just kind of see the chatter. It's a little blurry. This was actually taken from a burner phone, and it's kind of an older model, so we couldn't just side swipe and get the copy paste. We had to take a picture of the screen, and it's a little blurry because of that. But there's just basic introductory chatter. Hey, I'm interested in a DevOps position. What do you got? What can you do for me? And during the course of the conversation, these researchers were able to get a full scope of what the threat actor's pricing structure was, what tools and expertise that the proxy himself was specializing in, and then also just video samples of previous interviews that this proxy interviewer had done before. And while the conversation was going on, there was questions and answers going back and forth. The proxy actually just gave these researchers 2 URLs. One was a You Can Book Me page, which was pretty much just a scheduling service. So you go on to this guy's You Can Book Me page, and you schedule what time your interview is, what date, and with who, and with what company, so the guy has all the information he needs. And then he also provided a Google Drive repository of all the videos that were recorded of his previous interviews, and there was like 1,200 of these videos that he's done. So this guy was like racking up money, because I think his pricing was like $100 an hour or something. Over the course of how many years he's been doing it, he was probably racking up 80, 90 grand, and this guy's living in India, so he's doing okay. So this is just a screenshot of his You Can Book Me page. You can see he's proud of himself. He's the king of proxies. He can crack any interview. It's just an introduction of where he lives. He's got 10 plus experience in the industry, 10 plus years experience in the industry. These are all the technologies that he's proficient in. So there's Azure, there's Jenkins, Tomcat, all that good stuff. So if you know what job you're applying for, you just look at his own little resume here, and you can say, okay, I want to hire this guy because he knows what he's talking about. He's got a success rate of 95%. So basically, out of the 1,200 videos that he's allegedly done, if not more, 95% of these people have actually gotten a job with that organization that they were hiring for. And this is just a screenshot of the Google Drive repository. The one unfortunate thing about this is that they aren't titled the way we would like it for it to be titled, where we can say that, okay, it was for the candidate's name or the company's name, because then we can quickly say, hey, this video is for this organization. We can notify them that, hey, if you hire this individual, he's probably not your guy. You guys need to do some investigation or background checks on him because he's not who he says he is. So pretty much we took a few videos, downloaded them, watched a couple of them. They were like about an hour or so long for the interview. So at the end, they were able to get the names of the employers and the companies that the videos were actually the interviews for. So towards the end, they were wrapping up the conversation. The proxy actually called the researchers on the burner phone. And basically, like I said, the proxy was from India. So fortunately, that team had a guy that could speak the native language. You can probably guess who it is. So he was able, he answered the phone and just, they basically just had a very casual conversation that, hey, what's up? Yeah, this is the job I'm looking for. Why are you in the US? Why did you move? These are actually basic casual conversations that people in India have with, amongst each other. Like, are you in the US for school? Did your parents move? Whatever. So that cultural background actually really helped, and we were fortunate that he was able to provide this information to us based off the report that was being built with the research team and the proxy on the other side. And again, I think the main reason we believed he was trying to call was to verify the identity, make sure there wasn't somebody on the other line just bullshitting him, trying to get information, because I think these guys are pretty squirrely about the people they talk to. So moral of the story, how did human intelligence help here? Basically, human intelligence was able to identify a particular threat actor or a network of threat actors, what they were doing, how they were doing it, and they were able to take all that information and pass it on to clients and their own organization, telling them that, hey, these are vulnerabilities in remote hiring processes. If these are the same gaps that we have, where hiring managers and HR managers are just interviewing employees over video, but they're never seeing them, there needs to be a workaround where the employees or the candidates actually go to, whether it's satellite offices or you fly them in, just to make sure that these people are who they say they are, so you don't end up with a possible insider that might have malicious threat or somebody that has no idea what they're doing, and then the whole functionality of your team just falls apart because you have somebody that's applying for a senior position and he doesn't know shit. Another quick story before we get into how to implement human intelligence. So there's an annual hacktivist operation called Op Icarus. Some of you may be aware of it. It's a anti-banking hacktivist operation. It happens every year. Most bigger banks aren't vulnerable to this because they use derivative tools, and I'll kind of get into that in a few slides here. So one member of the Information Sharing and Analysis Center distro, one of the ISAC community members, sent out an email just to everybody on the distro saying, hey, we're seeing a bunch of SQL injection, high level, basically high level meaning very basic cross-site scripting scans. Is anyone else seeing this? Can anyone corroborate what we're seeing in our event logs? So there was a team of researchers on that email chain as well, and during the same time that this member on the ISAC distro was saying they were seeing SQL injection, there was actually an ongoing hacktivist campaign going on. The reason they knew that is because they actually had built out a source network on social media, so they knew that this thing happens every year, and the timing of the email just was coincidental with the timing of the operation. Now, just because you have two pieces of information that corroborate doesn't mean they're related, right? Just because A is happening, it doesn't mean it's related to B. You need multiple sets of data and information to actually form a full intelligence picture. So just because they had, hey, there's somebody that's seeing a high level of SQL injection attacks, oh, there's Op Icarus going on, it's because of Op Icarus. You can't do that because you're gonna have incorrect information, you're gonna get head spinning, and people are gonna make the wrong decisions within the organization. So I actually use this quote a lot when I'm sending emails to clients, clients that I'm good with and familiar with, as well as to leadership, that, hey, we're seeing this and we're seeing this. I'm not rolling out the jump to conclusions mat just yet, but here's what I think is happening. Just so I have that little bit of, hey, I didn't say it's because of this, it's just my assessment. So in addition to the events that were happening in the logs, as well as the events of Op Icarus, this research team also identified a target list, which included a list of banks that were going to be targeted during Op Icarus, and a GitHub repository of the tools that were going to be launched during Op Icarus. So like I said earlier, the researchers had already established a network of hacktivists and criminals and whatever, so they just reached out to a couple of them saying, hey, what's going on? What are you guys doing? Is this really happening? What's your guys' usual initial entry point for these operations? I guess, again, they didn't use those words, but they were able to finagle an answer out of that. They reached out to a set of threat actors in 2017 as well as in 2018, and the two separate threat actors confirmed the same information, where SQL injection and cross-site scripting is actually the very initial steps during their pen testing against companies and targets that they go after during these operations. So you have three pieces of information that are starting to line up right now. This is just a screenshot of the GitHub repository for Op Icarus that a couple of hacktivists had posted a few years back. You may not be able to read it from the back, but there's a few tools on here that kind of stand out to me personally. There's Are You Dead Yet, which is Rudy. It's a very old, I think it's derivative of Slow Loris, but it's been out since like 2010, 2011. It's not a very powerful tool in 2018. It doesn't really do much unless you have a small mom and pop shop and they just can't take even a little bit of bandwidth coming at their website. You have Xerxes, you have stuff like killapache.py. Most of these are Python scripted DDoS tools. Most of them are dated, but there was also a separate section where there was homemade, customized SQL injection, cross-site scripting tools that seemed to line up with some of the events that this ISAC member was seeing in their logs as well. And this is actually chatter from one of the a screenshot of one of the conversations that the researchers were having with a threat actor. For those of you that can't see the actual screenshot in the back, I kind of typed out what the conversation is. The spelling mistakes are on purpose, just so it's, we're not typing in perfect English and we're getting called out as, Phoebes or something. Phoebes meaning feds. So basically you have the bad guy on the left side here saying, hey, looking for vulnerable banks. I found one, laugh out loud. And the researcher here, haha, SQL injection again. So this was actually very key. SQL injection again. It was a leading question in order to drive a particular response. So they're trying to confirm whether or not it was SQL injection. And by saying SQL injection again, it sort of has that leading question where the threat actor can confirm or deny it. And yes, he, fortunately confirmed it. Yup, it was SQL injection. And then they go on, laugh out loud. I hope it wasn't select 1 = 1, just throwing out that, command, hacker jargon, whatever, just to show that, hey, yeah, you, me, same, we know what we're talking about. He confirms maybe, laugh out loud. But whether or not he confirmed it was select 1 = 1, he still confirmed that, yes, SQL injection is what we usually throw out, and that's what we were doing recently. So how did human intelligence help here? We had 4 pieces of information that corroborated each other. Basically, they took the information that was provided by the ISAC member, which was the event logs. They took the information that they gathered from their sources and their source networks, which was Op Icarus is going on, here's the tools, here's the techniques, and here's the time frame that we do all these operations. And then they were able to take that information, put into a nice, pretty report, send it to all the members of the ISAC community, also to their clients, to their organization, and give them an idea of, hey, you guys are seeing this. It may be because of this that we're seeing going on. It's Op Icarus. And based off that information, organizations can actually make a more informed decision that, hey, it's 90% chance it's Op Icarus and it's hacktivist tools. This is how we can mitigate it. So people aren't just running around with their head spinning saying, what do we do about what's going on? All right, we'll take a break from some of these stories, and we'll just kind of go into how human intelligence kind of fits into an information security team, if you guys bear with me. This is the F3 Ead Cycle. It's the intelligence cycle that was created by the US SOCOM, Department of Justice, Department of Defense. They all use this in offensive counterterrorism, intelligence operations in the battlefield. Basically, you have 6 functions: define, fix, finish, exploit, analyze, and disseminate. And the reason I think this works pretty well is in information security is you can take all the functions of an information security team and fit them perfectly within each of these steps in the cycle. So for define, the initial identifying the target, you have your intel teams, you have your priority intelligence requirements, which is what your intelligence team generates. You have your initial SOC threat analysis team that are actually sitting, monitoring the logs, so they're the first ones that actually get the information and get the events and see what's going on. And the cycle just goes on where you keep passing information to certain teams and everybody knows what responsibility they have in order to get the final product, which is to disseminate the information in a nice, coherent intelligence product in order for leadership and your clients to make better informed decisions. That's pretty much the ultimate takeaway for an intelligence collection platform, is to drive operations and drive decision making. There's actually a simpler model, which I've adopted, and this is the Air Force OSI targeting model. It's very similar to the F3 Ead cycle that we saw earlier. It only consists of 4 steps in the cycle: define, fix, track, neutralize. Basically, it performs the same. In essence, it's the same thing. It's just a little bit more simpler. It's more neater. For me, it works better. That's what I use in my team where I am. So you have the find, fix, track phases of the cycle, and that actually serves as the detection function to me. So where you have the intelligence team, your malware analysis team, threat analysis, all these guys that are front and center getting the information, getting the data as it's coming in. And then the last step, the neutralize, actually serves 2 functions. It actually serves a prevention, which is where your vulnerability assessment, content delivery, SIM, those guys come in, and then remediation, which is an event has already happened, now we're just cleaning up. And that's where countermeasures, again, incident response, patch management, forensics kind of step in and take part in that. Now, it sounds a little complicated. You have all these teams that are trying to work in unison. You have an intelligence function, and you're trying to adapt it into information security. The best thing that that pretty much works for me, and it's very important in the military as well, is communication. If you don't communicate, either your operation won't be successful, or people are going to get hurt, or people are going to have no idea what to do when an event is actually happening. So communication, to me, I break it down in 5 simple steps: who, what, where, when, and why. I learned that's probably one of the few things I took away from grade school. But when you talk about the 5 W's when you're communicating, it just gives everybody a full picture of what's going on, when it's going to happen, why is it happening, and it gives leadership and your clients or whoever you're sharing that information with a better idea of what's going on in the greater in the threat landscape, all the information you've collected, and if there's anything they need to do about it. So communication is one of the biggest things that makes intelligence operations in information security as successful as it is. And here's just a graphic of the Air Force OSI model. Like I said, it's cleaner, it's nicer, it works for me. So one last story before we clean things up here. Anyone here heard of the Dark Overlord? It's pretty common. So his claim to fame is actually, he's done a lot. He's been active since about 2014, 2015. He's a cyber criminal. Basically, he compromises organizations. RDP is a specialty, brute forcing RDP. He takes sensitive data, credentials that were improperly stored or improperly secured in an organization, takes it, leaks it, demands a ransom, or just sells it to the highest bidder. Most famously, he's known for leaking the newest season of Orange is the New Black last year. So that's where he actually gained most of his fame. There was a group of researchers, again, they had contacts in underground marketplace forums and social media, and basically they were interacting with people that were in the game of buying and selling data and sensitive information. So here comes the Dark Overlord. He's got all this information, he wants to sell it. Threat researchers here, the HUMINT team, actually had a set of personas that they decided to use as a middleman. Basically, they were going to be the data broker between the seller, who was the Dark Overlord, and a potential buyer, which they claimed they had for the Dark Overlord. So they reached out to the Dark Overlord. They had already built their rapport. They had their reputations on these underground websites. So the Dark Overlord was actually pretty receptive to them reaching out to him saying, hey, we got a buyer for you. How much are you selling it for? What do you have? Can you get a sample so we can know what you have is actually legitimate? What he didn't do is send a sample, but what he did provide to the team was a screenshot of some of the data that he had. Now what he did, there we go. So he showed a screenshot of the information that he allegedly had, and basically what he messed up on was scrubbing the information. He actually gave away the server name of the organization that he had targeted and that was compromised, and as well as admitting that, yeah, I did it via RDP brute forcing, these companies are stupid, blah, blah, blah. And based off the unscrubbed, improperly censored screenshot that he provided, they were able to narrow down the victim organization as a healthcare provider in Georgia and Tennessee. All right, so how did human intelligence help here? Basically, 3 key pieces of information. We had the victim, we had the threat actor, and we had the attack vector. Now, the attack vector was being probably the most important part, because if you have the victim and the threat actor and you don't know how the compromise happened, it's easy for another threat actor to come by and do the same thing, and the victim have no idea how it happened. So knowing what the attack vector was allowed the organization to actually close their security vulnerabilities that they had. the information was put together, it was passed to law enforcement, the FBI, it was provided to the client. And the reason I take this one actually a little bit personally is because 6 weeks after the breach was, privately disclosed to the client and law enforcement, I personally got a letter in the mail saying your personal information may have been exposed as a result of a breach, and it was because of this breach that happened here. The chiropractor's office I was seeing that summer was part of this healthcare provider. That's why I got it. So how does HUMINT play a valuable role in information security? Raw data from human sources. It's very unique. It's not appliances. It's not signals intelligence. Information security is very signals heavy. You have firewalls. You have appliances. You have all the latest and greatest appliances and technologies you can throw at your environment. This is strictly talking to humans, people on the ground that are right there knowing exactly what's going on and when it's going to happen before it actually happens. It provides those nuances and context, like I said, early indication of possible warning and warning possible threats. You have the threat actor's intent, pretty much what the threat actor hopes to accomplish, as well as the motivation. Why is the threat actor doing this? Is there a way we can prevent this from happening in the future? As well, and then again, you can track and assess threat actor's future operations based off pattern analysis. So this is actually the meme that started this whole presentation for me. SIGINT and HUMINT actually have a very friendly rivalry in the DoD as well. The Department of Defense is very signals heavy, and usually it's, what does SIGINT say? Okay, cool. What does HUMINT say? Well, whatever. Even though most of the time we corroborate what SIGINT says, it's never what does HUMINT say first. It's always the signals part, and that's how I kind of feel information security is as well. So, like I said, not necessarily a friendly rivalry between human signals intelligence, the DoD. Information security is also very SIGINT oriented, so HUMINT actually comes in as that value-added data to supplement. I'm not saying signal intelligence, firewalls, and appliances are bad. It's just that it's just one set of data, and you add human intelligence, and you put those two together. Now you have multiple sets of data. Now you have what I call threat intelligence. So hashtag threat intelligence is bad, but when you actually take multiple sets of data, then you can say hashtag threat intelligence. We actually took multiple pieces of data, we put it together, and we actually have a pattern of what's happening and why it's happening. And from my experience, 100% of the time when I work with veterans that have been in this intelligence industry in the past, you have someone that's been deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan for 12, 18 months doing human intelligence or intelligence analysis for 12, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. They come back with this experience that somebody straight out of the schoolhouse just doesn't have, or somebody with that experience just doesn't have. So we have people in the veteran community that are excellent add-ons to information security, and it's a very niche environment. It's not fully realized or recognized just yet, but all it takes sometimes is a good leader with a vision. That's how I got my start. I had an individual that knew what human intelligence was all about. He took a chance, and now we're growing as a team. And these are just some ambassadors of human intelligence, cyber intelligence, people that I consider my mentors or people that I respect a lot. We have Treadstone, who is one of the pioneers of cyber threat intelligence. Most of you are probably familiar with the Jester. He did a lot of good work with taking down Al-Qaeda and ISIS websites in the past. Mouse is actually a malware reverser and a first sergeant and a signals person, but she was my early mentors in information security. And then you have this asshole right here. That's me 40 miles from the Pakistani border back in 2011 when I was running around having fun in Afghanistan. So, you can find me on Twitter. I go by Buho Oscuro. I don't really do too much professional work-related tweeting, but you're more than welcome to message me and ask questions. And if nobody has any questions right now, that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.